I'm going to visually show you some of the most important skills that graphic designers are going to regret not mastering in 2026. And these are skills you likely won't hear about elsewhere on YouTube. So let's start with visual positioning, which could mean you are actually subtly failing your clients. So when you design something, do you ever stop and ask, what does this entire niche already look like? Or do you just open up Pinterest, grab inspiration, and build something that looks good in isolation? Because here's the problem. In 2026, niches have become visually saturated at insane speeds. Trends don't last 2 or 3 years anymore. They last 6 months tops, often less, and they have become less important and less robust. But let's say you're designing for a tech startup. What do most tech startups look like right now? Well, we've got soft gradients, rounded UI elements, friendly geometric sans serif fonts, and muted purples or blues for the most part. And that's combined with minimal layouts and generous white space. Now here's the pain point. If you produce something that also uses soft gradients, rounded UIs, muted blues, and so on, it might look clean, it might look professional, but also in this industry, it becomes literally invisible because it doesn't position in today's fast evolving landscape where your graphic designs live. And hey, that might actually fit your brief and your project, but also it might not. The key is knowing this very thing and being aware of everything I've just explained to you. And so here's what elite designers actually do differently. Before they design anything, they run what I call a saturation audit. They pull up 10 to 20 competitors in that niche. Not 2, not 3, but a collection. And then they lay them out side by side and they ask, what is repeated, what is predictable, what is visually expected? Then they make a decision. Do we align our design system with expectation intentionally, or do we disrupt it strategically? That decision alone can double your value at the very least, and it comes down to your brief and your individual project. Knowing how your design fits into a culture, into a niche, into a sector is so vital. And these days, it's more important than ever. And that's the first skill designers will regret not mastering in 2026 and beyond. Now let me ask you something else. When you send a proposal to a client, what are you really selling? Now think about this objectively. What are you actually doing? What is your part in this equation? Are you selling literal pixels? Or maybe you are selling certainty and peace of mind? Designers who only think visually limit themselves pretty drastically. But then on the flip side, designers who understand psychology increase perceived authority to any client or potential client. And don't get it twisted, you don't need to actually have a psychology degree, but you do need some kind of awareness into this. For example, take the theory of authority bias. If your portfolio describes projects casually, like, here's a logo I made in 2019, you appear somewhat junior. But if you describe it as, this identity system was built to increase brand recall, mainly through controlled, tailored typographic contrast and simplified visual hierarchy, suddenly you sound more strategic and on a whole other level to the former. Another example is something called clarity bias. Now, humans trust clarity. If your email is structured, decisive, and confident, clients can naturally just relax into it. If it's vague and reactive, clients feel uncertainty. And being a designer really comes down to many things that are beyond visuals and aesthetics. It's communication architecture. And this extends to how you build your portfolio. Are you showing final visuals? Or are you showing problem, constraint, strategic choice, and the outcome? But in 2026, a graphic designer needs to be seen as a thinker, and if you have other skills to add into the mix, you will leapfrog so many other designers. But if you ignore this shift, you'll feel stuck charging lower rates than you probably deserve.
I used to waste so much time trying to find the right typeface and the right fonts for my projects. Instinctively, the logic would say to reach for a font manager. And that's when I found FontBase. It is a fast, free font manager built specifically for designers, and it has completely streamlined my workflow. Whether you have 50 fonts or 50,000, the interface stays clean and smooth, and it runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux. One of my favorite features is the font playground. Now with this, you can test font pairings, adjust the headings and the line spacing, and even see how your layout might look in the real world. There is also font pinning, which lets you keep one font fixed at the top while you scroll and compare other fonts. And if you work with variable fonts, FontBase lets you tweak and preview all of those custom settings very easily. And yes, Google Fonts are built right into this thing, so you can activate them with a single click. But if you do go for the paid version, which is called FontBase Awesome, you will unlock something called Super Search. It is not just a tag system. FontBase actually analyzes the contrast, the weight, and the proportions of your fonts and shows them on a visual chart. It lets you filter and discover fonts in a way that feels just intuitive and fast. There is also auto activation for Adobe apps, and that means when you open a file, missing fonts get activated instantly. I know how much of a headache that can be. And you can try all the premium features for free for 3 months using my code Satori. Just visit the link in the description box below and check it out for yourself.
So this third one is pretty brutal. When you design something for social media, do you test it at thumbnail size? So maybe zooming out to 15%. The thing is, we are designing in a 2-second economy right now. 2 seconds to interrupt scroll behavior. 2 seconds to establish hierarchy. 2 seconds to communicate focal clarity. If your layout requires patience, it probably will lose somewhere along the lines. And so here's what you need to understand. Speed of cognition is becoming so rapid and so important for lots of aspects of graphic design consumption. You need high contrast focal points, clear entry points, minimal competing elements, and immediate hook placements. And I know, how to perfect this skill exactly? Well, you can try this practical exercise. Imagine you've designed an Instagram post, so it has a headline, a subheading, a background texture, a logo, and a decorative shape, maybe even a quote mark. Now it looks polished, sure, but it also looks complete. But here's the test. Zoom out until it's tiny. I'm talking like 10% scale. That is roughly how it's going to appear in a feed while someone is scrolling at hyperspeed. But what do you see first? If your answer is everything at once, then that's gonna be a problem. The brain needs a clear entry point, so one dominant element. Not 3, not 4, 1. And so the real exercise is to do this seriously. Duplicate your design, and on the duplicate, remove everything that is not absolutely essential to the core message. So maybe keep the headline, maybe one supporting visual element, and that's pretty much it. Now increase the contrast between those two elements and make the headline either significantly darker, lighter, larger, or more isolated. Increase that spacing around it and remove decorative noise. Does the message still hit instantly? Can you read it in 1 second? And does it still actually adhere to the brief and the project goals? So if the answer is yes across the board, you have improved speed of cognition. Now you can slowly reintroduce elements one by one if needed. So things that are actually essential to the brief, like maybe a logo or a texture or something like that. And this is how you can train attention economy thinking in graphic design. Clear entry points mean the viewer's eye has somewhere obvious to start. Minimal competing elements means you're not asking the brain to decide between 5 equal options. An immediate hook placement means your strongest message is not buried at the bottom of the layout. Here's something to really consider. If you can only design strong, simple designs, you are an asset producer. But if you can design a cross sequence with attention, you're thinking like a creative director. Let me give you a practical example. So imagine you're designing a 5-slide Instagram carousel for a brand announcement. Most designers will treat all 5 slides the same, or pretty much the same. So same layout structure, same grids, same headline placement, that kind of thing. Just swapping text and maybe imagery and it will look consistent, sure, but it doesn't feel dynamic. So we can always approach this differently. Slide 1 should not just quote unquote look good, it should create some kind of tension. It should spark curiosity. So maybe it introduces a bold claim. Maybe it isolates a provocative phrase with heavy contrast and breathing room. And then slide 2 shouldn't just repeat that kind of energy. It should expand that idea. So maybe it introduces a deeper context. The typography shifts slightly, the layout opens up, but the visual language is the same. And slide 3 could shift emphasis, so perhaps the hierarchy changes, maybe a key statistic becomes more dominant, the focal point moves intentionally. And slide 4 adds a visual breather of sorts. It becomes clean and it adds a visual break from too much information. And slide 5 delivers the payoff. It's the brand statement, it's the call to action, and it's clean and it's confident. The visual noise is minimal and it feels resolved. That's narrative architecture in graphic design. You're controlling the rhythm, the pacing, the tension, and the release, visually speaking, of course. And this does apply beyond just social media graphics. If every poster in a campaign looks exactly the same, you're just repeating the layouts. Visual narrative building means asking, where does the eye begin in the sequence? Where does it escalate? Where does it pause? And where does it resolve? So try to think of your designs as mini stories in some respects, and then you can build some kind of dynamic narrative, yet maintain the same visual language across the board. But before you fully consider that, maybe you should consider clicking one of the videos on screen because YouTube thinks you will find it useful today. But until next time guys, of course, design your future today. Peace.